At a bustling train station in the city, there lived a beggar who scraped by each day by asking passengers for money. Every day, he sat in a hidden corner of the platform, his eyes filled with hope for the kindness of strangers. His life repeated itself endlessly. No goals, no hope, just mere survival through the generosity of others. For him, begging wasn't a choice, but the only way to live. Though he owned nothing, he still hoped someone generous enough would offer a helping hand. To him, the world was harsh and his fate was unfortunate. He never believed his life could change, until one day, a chance encounter turned everything around. One morning, like any other, while wandering between train cars, the beggar spotted a tall, well-dressed man stepping onto the platform. The man's sharp suit and confident demeanor immediately signaled wealth. "This man must be rich. He'll surely give me something good," the beggar thought. Filled with hope, he approached the man and asked for money as usual. But instead of pulling out his wallet, the man paused, looked straight at the beggar, and said gently, "You're always asking others, but have you ever given anything yourself?" The beggar froze, then stammered, "Sir, I'm poor. I have nothing to give. How could I possibly give anything away?" The man nodded and said something the beggar would never forget. "If you have nothing to give, then you have no right to ask. I'm a businessman. I believe only in fair exchange, give and take." With that, the man turned and boarded the train, leaving the beggar stunned, his mind echoing with a question: "Have I really never given anything?" That sentence from the wealthy man echoed in the beggar's mind all day. He couldn't shake off those words. If you have nothing to give, then you have no right to ask. They pierced through the darkness of his thoughts like a flash of lightning. He realized he'd spent his entire life asking, receiving, never once thinking of giving. And now he faced a painful truth. He had never really had anything to give. The thought left him feeling weak, worthless, undeserving of help. But the more he thought about it, the more something began to stir inside him, a powerful urge to change. How can I, a beggar, give anything? He kept asking himself. Perhaps not money, not possessions, but maybe there were still things he could offer. As he looked around, his eyes landed on some fresh flowers blooming nearby. An idea suddenly sparked in his mind. Flowers, he thought, that's something I can give. With that thought, he decided to do something different. Instead of just taking, he would give flowers to those who helped him. A small act, but perhaps the first step toward changing not just his fate, but also how people saw him. He made up his mind. Starting today, every time someone gave him money, he would offer them a flower in return. It was his way of expressing gratitude, and also a way to live out the businessman's lesson: give to receive. A new hope lit up inside him, and it felt like his life was about to turn a corner, starting with these simple, delicate flowers. From the day he had that idea, the beggar began to act on it. Each morning, before taking his usual spot at the station, he would go out and pick the freshest, most beautiful flowers he could find. Whenever someone stopped to help, instead of just accepting the money, he'd hand them a flower with a warm smile. At first, the recipients were surprised, but soon, they began to appreciate the sincerity in his gesture. The flowers weren't just gifts. They became symbols of gratitude and connection. Everyone who received one felt seen, appreciated, and happy. That created a special bond between them and the beggar. As time passed, not only did more people give him money, but they even gave more generously, often with joy and admiration. The beggar began to notice a real shift. More and more people came to him, and they always smiled when receiving a flower. What was truly magical, though, was how he felt every time he handed someone a flower. He no longer felt like a beggar. He felt like someone who was giving value, even if it was small. Through this, he gained something he had never experienced before: respect and love from others. One day, as he sat in his usual spot at the station, he suddenly saw the well-dressed man, the very one who had changed his entire mindset. The man stepped off a train, his familiar appearance still exuding confidence. But this time, the beggar didn't feel embarrassed or small. He wasn't a pitiful beggar anymore. He was a confident man who had learned to give and experience transformation. As the man walked closer, the beggar stood up, walked toward him, and said with a confident voice, "Today I have something to tell you. I'm no longer a beggar, I'm a businessman." The man stopped, a hint of surprise in his eyes, then smiled warmly. The beggar continued, "I've learned that life isn't just about receiving, it's also about giving. Every flower I hand out brings not just money, but gratitude and respect. That's how I became a flower seller, and from there, my life changed." The man listened, then smiled and replied, "I'm glad to see your transformation. You've learned the true meaning of giving and receiving." The beggar felt a wave of joy and pride wash over him. It wasn't just his life circumstances that had changed. His soul had changed. His outlook on himself and the world had shifted completely. That reunion was like a seal of approval on his new journey, proof that he had truly stepped out of the shadows and into a brighter future. 6 months passed, and the life of the once homeless beggar had completely transformed. He was no longer waiting for pity at the station. Instead, he had become a successful flower seller. Every day, he woke early to pick the freshest blooms, bringing them to the market and the train station to sell. His customer base grew steadily, and many of them were once the same people who had given him spare change. They were touched by his transformation. The flowers he gave were no longer just goods. They were symbols of revival, of tireless effort and hope. His story became a powerful lesson in mindset and the strength of giving. Changing how he thought didn't just lift him out of poverty, it changed his whole life. He realized that if one only knows how to receive without giving, life will never change. Giving, then, isn't just a business principle, it's a deep philosophy of life. When we give, whether it's material things or emotional kindness, we don't just help others, we also open the door to receive better things in return. The way we view ourselves also greatly affects how the world treats us. If we see ourselves as weak and worthless, others will treat us that way. But if we're confident and believe in our worth, the world responds with respect and opportunity. This former beggar proved that once we change how we see ourselves, we can escape the cycle of poverty and failure. No dream is too big, as long as we believe in ourselves and take action. If we're willing to change our mindset, give to others, and never stop trying, anything is possible. As the saying goes, only when we give do we truly deserve to receive.